So Ellen's trying to make a comeback, and apparently it's not going too well. Big surprise.
Ellen's trying to make a comeback with her new stand-up special, although its reviews have mostly been terrible. She spends most of the special responding to her being kicked out of showbiz, which began when someone posted just one single tweet. Right now, we all need a little kindness. You know, like Ellen DeGeneres always talks about. She's also notoriously one of the meanest people alive. Respond to this with the most insane stories you've heard about Ellen being mean. The tweet posted in March 2020.
Yeah, it's hard to keep a persona that you're like this nice person that everybody loves, which is what she was trying to project. And then in actuality, like everyone knows the truth and it gets exposed. And then it's like, oh, you're not nice at all. Of course, nobody wants to keep watching then. It's like the exact opposite of everything she's been trying to project.
He received bad enough replies to begin Ellen's downfall. I worked at Real Food Daily, served her and Portia a brunch. She wrote a letter to the owner and complained about my chipped nail polish, not that it was on her plate, but just that it was on my hand. I worked till closing the night before, and this was the next morn. Almost got me fired.
Can you imagine somebody taking the time to write a letter to an owner because your nail polish was chipped and you just didn't like the look of it? And like almost getting somebody fired just because you have that level of pull because you're Ellen?
The nail polish story was so unbelievable, the person who wrote it went on Inside Edition.
This former waitress claims she was threatened with a 2-week suspension after Ellen DeGeneres complained about, of all things, her chipped fingernail polish.
I remember just being like, really?
But the stories shared back on Twitter were only getting worse. I once worked at Warner.
I mean, it's kind of notorious at this point for like talk show hosts just being jerks, because like the same thing happened with James Corden, and at least then the restaurant owners like stood up for the employee at that point. But it's just like when you get surrounded by so many yes men all the time, it's just like, oh, I can do no wrong as far as they're concerned. And then they just keep doing the crazy stuff and it just gets amplified more and more and more.
Brothers. One day I was in the elevator and Ellen and her entourage came in. Naturally, I held it for her and asked her what floor she was getting on. Her assistant answered 3rd floor. 30 minutes later, I got a call from my boss saying I was fired because I was harassing her. An old friend worked on her a lot and smiled and said good afternoon to her one day and she became unhinged. Who do you think you are? You don't look at me, yada yada. She said Portia was with her and seemed embarrassed and tried to calm her down. Has forever changed my opinion of her. The responses went on and on and on.
That level of unhinged feels, I mean, if all of these are true, that feels like it's not just becoming an ego or yes men boosting up your esteem in ways that it shouldn't. That feels like it's like mental health problems or substances being involved.
All of which being compared to Ellen's classic catchphrase.
I always end each show by saying be kind to one another.
Audience member Dana DiMatteo then went public with her degrading experience on the show.
They tell you, you can't be smarter, funnier than Ellen. She's the comedian and the star, not you.
Don't be funnier than Ellen. That's gonna be hard considering she's not that funny to begin with. If you've been a comedian your whole life and you're afraid a random audience member will upstage you, maybe you're just not funny. Dana then revealed that Ellen's completely different when the cameras turn off.
How does the Ellen we see on TV compare to the Ellen you saw when the cameras stopped rolling?
Totally different. She would only speak to the audience when the cameras were rolling. As soon as they turned the cameras off, she would not even acknowledge the audience. She would just sit on the couch, basically.
Which was supported by Hedda Muscat, one of the show's former producers.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
She agreed that things were different when the cameras weren't rolling.
We were told from the very beginning, don't talk to Ellen, don't do this, you can't, go into her office. It was very nerve-wracking, very stressful. We all walked on eggshells all the time.
And after the show's DJ also said the same, BuzzFeed launched their own investigation, interviewing a further 11 former employees.
Like I can kind of understand not wanting to like interact with people as much as soon as the cameras are off, because you have to be on all the time and it just starts to like drain you. But to be an active jerk is another story, and that sounds like what she does on a regular basis.
They were fired after taking medical leave or bereavement days to attend family funerals. One employee who claimed she was fed up with comments about her race essentially walked off the job. Others said they were also instructed by their direct managers to not speak to DeGeneres if they saw her around the office. After the accusations went viral, Ellen issued a statement within the company. "Hey everybody, it's Ellen. On day one of our show, I told everyone in our first meeting that the Ellen DeGeneres show would be a place of happiness. No one would ever raise their voice, and everyone would be treated with respect. Obviously something changed, and I'm disappointed to learn that this has not been the case. And for that, I'm sorry. Anyone who knows me knows it's the opposite of what I believed and what I hoped for our show, yet Ellen's former producer certainly..."
Yeah, that's like purely trying to send a message out that you know is going to be public. Like covering your own ass.
"I didn't buy it."
So when Ellen says she's not aware of this environment, you don't think that rings true?
It's a lie.
Ellen then took a 2-month break and began a brand new season by addressing the public.
As you may have heard, this summer there were allegations of a toxic work environment at our show. I learned that things happened here that never should have happened. I take that very seriously, and I want to say I am so sorry to the people who were affected. We have made the necessary changes, and today we are starting a new chapter.
She'd then make the promise,
And I am committed to making this the best season that we have ever had.
although the ratings said the opposite, because only 6 months later the New York Times published Ellen DeGeneres loses 1 million viewers after apologies for toxic workplace.
And it doesn't help that when she's talking about it, she's referring to it as if it's like somebody else that was doing all this, not that she was the one being terrible to everybody.
It explained that Ellen had been averaging 1.5 million viewers over the last 6 months, down from 2.6 million in the same period last year. The show's loss of more than 1 million viewers translates to a 43% decline, representing a steeper drop than any of its competitors. As a result, Ellen made the announcement,
I am announcing that next season, season 19, is going to be my last season.
adding in The Hollywood Reporter, "As great as this show is, and as fun as it is, it's just not a challenge anymore. I need something new to challenge me, with her being exposed also clearly having an impact. She'd state the expose destroyed me, honestly. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. And it makes me really sad that there's so much joy out there from negativity. It's a culture now where there are just mean people, and it's so foreign to me that people get joy out of that." These mean people responded, stating, "Even without the..."
Like, all right, so even if she's not addressing any of the facts that it seems to be directed like directly at her own behavior at any point, and that's part of the biggest issue, is that she doesn't seem to see that. Granted, there could be people that totally BS online, that totally write the most ridiculous stories. I used to go through so many Reddit stories that I would read on this channel on a regular basis, and a handful of the time I wouldn't even post it, because later on I would dig into their comments or dig into like other post history and see that like they just have a habit of making crap up. But when you have this much coming out against you and everybody's kind of agreeing like, yeah, you're kind of a douche, like maybe you're the problem. And the fact that like half the time when you watch her show after seeing these comments and stuff, you feel that like some of the guests that are even stars feel uncomfortable, but are just like forced to kind of play along.
Controversy, the show hasn't been fun and genuine for years. It may have never been, but at least it seemed like it. But Ellen is tired of it all, and she's lousy at hiding it now. No more dancing by her, no monologue half the time, bad jokes that are dragged out way too long, tons of old show clips, tons of self-promotion, and a guest host every Friday. These elements led to an average final season, which Ellen concluded by crying with her audience. She then mentioned the possibility of returning to acting, but instead made a documentary titled Saving the Gorillas: Ellen's Next Adventure. It released in 2023, but with only 100 reviews on IMDb, and this likely being the first time you've heard of it, it's safe to say it performed pretty poorly.
Yeah, that's definitely the first time I've heard of it, and I can't imagine a major star like that having that few reviews and that poor of those reviews is rough.
Ellen rather went back to living a quiet life until April 2024, when she'd make a new announcement. You may have heard that I'm doing stand-up again. If you want to come see me, I'll be sharing some news tomorrow at noon. As suggested, she'd announce a stand-up tour to be recorded and posted by Netflix, also adding, yes, I'm going to talk about it, referring to her being cancelled. Titled For Your Approval, the special begins with Ellen walking up a flight of stairs, each referencing a headline that ruined her reputation. She acknowledges the tweet that started her downfall, as well as the employees who spoke out against her, then begins the actual show with a joke about her fall from grace.
You know, I used to say that I didn't care what other people thought of me, and I realize now, looking back, I said that at the height of my popularity. I'm here because I love doing stand-up, I miss doing stand-up, and I like making people happy, and I do care what people think.
Now, this is a pretty respectable angle, as it feels extremely honest. Yet it also seems like a sneaky request for pity, which as a high-profile celebrity you'll simply never get. She then talks about what she's been up to.
Yeah, nobody gives pity if you are that famous. You don't, people don't care that much anymore once you have that much money, that much popularity, that much success. People aren't going to pity you anymore.
All right, well, let me catch up on what's been going on with me since you saw me last. Oh yeah, I got kicked out of show business.
Then makes some pretty funny jokes about her new reputation.
Everybody heard that I was mean. Everywhere I go, I know everyone's heard that I'm mean. I know when I walk into a restaurant, people are watching, waiting to see if I'll be mean. Oh, look, she's reaching for butter. I thought she was gonna hit somebody.
On the contrary, there are some pretty out-of-touch segments. For example, her joking about her car features, which you'd clearly only find in a luxury vehicle.
Then there's that one, that button that inflates the back of the seat. You know, the one that makes you feel like you're getting spooned by a pregnant woman.
She also makes this out-of-touch joke.
Yeah, that's when you stop relating to people, when you don't realize that the stuff you have is like high end.
We're all interested in different things. We're all good at different things. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, Ellen, I don't know how you get on stage in front of people. I could never do that. And I said, well, I don't know how you dry clean clothes.
But as an overall, the special isn't terrible. Its audience rating of 5.4 stars feels fairly accurate, although as you might expect, simply because it's Ellen, the articles written about it have been pretty brutal. Ellen DeGeneres' unfunny Netflix special leaves so much unsaid. Ellen DeGeneres lets herself off the hook in self-indulgent Netflix special. Ellen DeGeneres is unapologetic, unrelatable, and totally insufferable in her new Netflix special. They'd write, the problem with For Your Approval.
Look, people saying that it's not great and giving it like a very mid score is one thing, but I feel like a lot of times when you look at these reviews that are fully written up, they're going to use the most extreme versions of the titles because those are the only ones that really grab people's attention. So you always have to look a little deeper, but still, it didn't get a great review, and it does seem like she's pretty out of touch. It just doesn't seem as bad as like those titles would imply. However, it sounds like she was a pretty terrible person for a while anyways, and I don't know how much you can really give her credit for post that.
Aside from the fact that it's almost never funny, is that it feels so disingenuous, so calculated to rehabilitate an image and preserve that triumph for prosperity.
See, that seems more like to the point, tells you exactly what's going on. It's disingenuous, it's out of touch, and calculated. Absolutely. You can back that up with everything that's already been posted. But the titles are like blowing that up because that's how you get the clicks, right?
Another article stated it's one of the weirdest stand-up shows in recent memory. Half observational punchlines, half closing argument in a trial, featuring DeGeneres as her own defense attorney. Neither half works on its own. Taken as a whole, it's an exhausting mess. That also adds self-awareness is different from taking responsibility. DeGeneres offers no apologies or even explanations for her behavior, yet in other more favorable reviews, unapologetic was used as a positive. I like the fact that she's rather unapologetic. It's highly refreshing and honest. This extreme divide can be seen by the audience reviews on Google. There's almost an equal amount of 1 and 5-star ratings, a sad representation of the black and white thinking that plagues the internet so heavily today.
Yeah, like, oh, and apparently somebody else is reviewing that. But yeah, I think it's so... Nobody's going to feel bad for you if you're insanely successful and you are insanely rich and all this stuff and you're just a jerk to everybody. Nobody cares about that. And if you are super out of touch, it's really hard to come back even more. You can be a jerk in like one scenario, maybe two, and that's already hard enough to come back from. But she had like insane amounts of backlash of everybody saying what a terrible jerk she was. That's not something you come back from, especially when you had an image of the nice person that just wants people to be happy.